Welcome, restless souls, to Carmen's Crypt. I'm Carmen Carrion, keeper of forgotten tales and curator of nightmares. You've wandered into my domain, where each week I unearth a fresh horror from the depths of human imagination. In these darkened halls, stories wait like hungry shadows. Each tale we've collected whispers of terrors both ancient and new. From crumbling mansions where something skitters behind the walls, to that strange text message you received at 3 a.m. from a number that shouldn't exist. So gather close. The candles are lit, the shadows grow long, and the witching hour is upon us. Are you prepared to face what lurks in the darkest recesses of Carmen's Crypt? Lock your doors, still your nerves, and remember, here, every fear comes to life. This is Carmen's Crypt. Your sanctuary of scares awaits. The old Hartwell place had been empty for 3 years when Madison first heard it whisper and saw the blood seeping under the front door. She was cutting through the overgrown yard on her way home from school, taking the shortcut between the new Maple Creek subdivision and downtown Millfield's historic district. The October wind sent dead leaves skittering across the cracked sidewalk, and something made her stop and look up at the sagging Victorian house. That's when she heard it, soft as autumn air through broken window glass. Your mother cries in the shower every Tuesday. Madison's blood turned to ice water. She looked around the empty street, but there was no one. Just her, the dying light, and the house with its boarded windows that somehow seemed to be watching. And there, trickling from beneath the warped front door, was a thin stream of dark red liquid. Fresh blood. She ran the rest of the way home, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. "You're being ridiculous," said Jaden, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. At 14, he prided himself on being logical about everything. Houses don't talk, Madison. And that wasn't blood, probably just rust water from old pipes. They were sitting in the food court at Millfield Mall the next Saturday, along with Zoe and Parker. Madison had finally worked up the courage to tell them what happened. "I know what I saw," Madison insisted, picking at her pretzel. She was small for 13, with dark hair that fell in waves around her pale face. "It knew about my mom. How could Rustwater know that?" Zoe leaned forward, her green eyes bright with interest. She was the kind of girl who read tarot cards and believed in ghosts. "What exactly did it say?" Madison's voice dropped to a whisper. "It said my mother cries in the shower every Tuesday." She paused. "And she does. I've heard her, but I never told anyone, not even you guys." Parker, who was busy decimating a bag of gummy bears, looked up. "Maybe someone's living in there, like a homeless person or something." "In a condemned house?" Jaden shook his head. "The city sealed it up years ago. My dad says old man Hartwell died in there, and his relatives just abandoned it." He paused. "Actually, he said Hartwell was found torn apart, like something had eaten him." The temperature around their table seemed to drop. "So what are you saying?" Zoe asked Madison. "That the house is haunted?" Madison wrapped her arms around herself. "I don't know what I'm saying, but I know what I heard, and I know what I saw." They sat in silence for a moment, watching families with shopping bags walk past their table. The normal world seemed very far away. "There's only one way to find out," Zoe said finally. They all looked at her. "We go back," she continued. "Together, tonight." The Hartwell house squatted on Elm Street like a cancer, and tonight it seemed to be breathing. Built in 1897, according to the historical plaque by the front gate, it had once been the pride of the neighborhood. Now paint peeled from its gray siding in long, diseased strips. The wraparound porch sagged under the weight of rotting wood, and several shutters hung at broken angles. but it was the sound coming from inside that made them all freeze. Wet, tearing noises, like meat being pulled apart. The four friends stood at the edge of the yard as darkness settled over Millfield. Behind them, the lights of the new subdivision twinkled like fallen stars. Ahead, the old house waited in shadow, occasionally lit by flashes of sickly green light from within. "The back door," Parker whispered, his voice shaking. "My brother told me kids have been getting in through the back door for years." He didn't mention that 3 of those kids had never come back out. They picked their way around the side of the house, stepping carefully over broken glass and what looked like scattered bones. Small ones, maybe from animals. The backyard was a tangle of dead vines and skeletal trees. A child's swing set stood abandoned near the back fence, its chains creaking softly in the wind. Except there was no wind. The back door hung open just a crack, as if the house were taking a breath. Dark liquid had pooled around the threshold. "Last chance to chicken out," Jaden muttered, but he was already pulling out his phone's flashlight with trembling hands. Madison pushed the door open. It swung inward with a sound like a dying animal's moan. They stepped into what had once been a kitchen. Wallpaper hung in moldy strips, and the linoleum floor was buckled and stained with something that definitely wasn't water. Everything smelled like mildew, and something else that made their stomachs turn. Rotted meat, fresh blood, and underneath it all, the sweet stench of death. "Hello?" Madison called softly into the darkness. A sound answered her. A wet, sliding noise, like something being dragged across the floor. Above them, something heavy hit the ceiling directly above their heads. Plaster dust rained down. "Maybe it only works during the day," Parker suggested, backing toward the door. But Zoe was already moving deeper into the house, her own phone light dancing across walls that seemed to pulse and breathe. "Come on, let's explore." A window exploded somewhere upstairs. Glass tinkled down like deadly rain. They made their way through the downstairs rooms, a dining room with a chandelier that looked like a giant dead spider, a living room where mice had built nests in the torn upholstery of an ancient sofa. Family photos still hung on some walls, but the faces in them seemed to follow their movement. And the eyes looked like they were bleeding. "This is stupid," Jaden said, when they'd been searching for 20 minutes, jumping at every creak and groan. "There's nothing here but rot and—" Jaden cheated on the SAT practice test. The voice came from everywhere, soft as a whisper, clear as a bell. They all heard it. But this time, something else came with it. A hand, pale, rotting, with fingernails like black claws, burst through the wall next to Jaden's head. He screamed and stumbled backward as the hand grasped blindly for his face, leaving deep scratches in the wallpaper.
Question 37. You looked at Madison's answer sheet.
Madison turned to stare at her friend, but she could barely focus on his guilt. The hand was still there, still reaching, and now they could see an arm attached to it. An arm that was extremely long, covered in what looked like bite marks. "You did, didn't you?" she whispered. Jaden's mouth opened and closed like a fish as he pressed himself against the opposite wall. Finally, he nodded, never taking his eyes off the grasping hand.
Truth is such a precious thing,
the voice continued.
So few people tell it anymore. But lies make me hungry.
The hand withdrew into the wall, with a wet sucking sound, leaving behind a hole that leaked thick, dark fluid. "Who are you?" Zoe called out.
I am the memory of this place.
When you're alone in your house, but you'd like to feel like you're not, the podcast inside your house can keep you company. Our show will make sure that you run up the stairs at night when you turn off the lights and check under your bed before you sleep. We'll bring you every kind of horror, from the classics like Lovecraft and Poe to the strange and often silly world of no sleep and creepypastas. We've even got stories written just for the show that you won't hear anywhere else. So go and check out the podcast inside your house. We're on all major platforms, as well as inside your pantry, deep in your crawl space, and sitting at the foot of your bed at night, watching you sleep.
The keeper of secrets. The eater of lies.
A pause. Then, from the hole in the wall, came a sound like chewing.
And I want what I have always wanted. To eat.
Parker laughed nervously, a high-pitched sound that bordered on hysteria. "Okay, this is getting too weird for me. I'm out." He headed for the kitchen, but something erupted from the floor in front of him. A mess of writhing, rotting flesh that might once have been human. It grabbed his ankle with fingers that squelched as they tightened. Parker screamed as he was yanked to the ground. The thing's face, if it could even be called a face, turned toward him, revealing a mouth full of broken, rotted teeth.
I know that Parker steals money from his mother's purse to buy cigarettes. He's too scared to smoke.
Parker clawed at the floor, trying to escape the creature's grip. "Help me, please." Madison grabbed his arms and pulled, but the thing was stronger, much stronger. Parker's shoe came off in its grasp, and he scrambled backward, sobbing. The creature sank back into the floor, taking the shoe with it. They could hear it chewing.
I know that Zoe cuts herself with a razor blade. She hides in her jewelry box.
Zoe's hand flew instinctively to her left wrist, covered by her long sleeves. As she did, the sleeve rode up, revealing fresh cuts that immediately began to bleed more heavily, as if something was calling to her wounds.
I know that Madison's father isn't really away on business trips.
Madison felt the world tilt as something cold wrapped around her throat, invisible fingers that pressed just hard enough to make breathing difficult. "What do you mean?" "He's in rehab. The third time."
Your mother told you he was traveling because she couldn't bear to say the word alcoholic again.
The word tipped Madison like a punch in the gut, and the invisible hands tightened. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. "Stop!" she gasped.
Truth hurts, doesn't it? But lies hurt more. Lies tear you apart from the inside.
As if to demonstrate, the walls around them began to split open like wounds, revealing glimpses of impossible spaces beyond. Rooms filled with hanging bodies, corridors lined with screaming faces, chambers where things that had never been human fed on the remnants of broken promises and shattered trust. "We should go," Jaden said, his voice shaking as he watched blood pour from the walls. "This is wrong. Whatever it is, it's wrong." But they couldn't move, not just because they were terrified, but because the house wouldn't let them. The floor had become soft and yielding like flesh, and their feet were sinking into it.
You want to know more?
The voice continued, and now they could see where it was coming from. "No," Parker whimpered. We just want to leave."
but the house wants to share its truths. It's been so hungry, so lonely, and you taste so sweet when you're afraid.
Something dropped from the hole, something wet and glistening. It landed with a splat between them, immediately beginning to grow and change shape. "Run!" Madison screamed. They tried to run, but the house fought them every step. The floor grabbed at their feet. The walls pressed in to block their path. Pictures on the walls came alive, reaching out with bloody hands to tear at their clothes and skin. Zoe screamed as a family portrait latched onto her arm, the figures in the frame biting down with painted teeth that drew real blood.
"Then follow me,"
the voice said, and suddenly, a light appeared at the top of the stairs, pale and cold, like moonlight through dirty glass. But around the light, they could see shapes moving, horrible shapes.
"Come see what truth really looks like."
"Don't," Parker pleaded, blood streaming from scratches across his face. "Please, just let us leave." But Madison was already being pulled toward the stairs by something they couldn't see. The others followed, not by choice, but because invisible hands were dragging them, leaving bloody fingerprints on their arms and necks. The second floor was a maze of bedrooms and hallways, but now the walls were lined with bodies, some fresh, some rotting, all of them watching with empty eye sockets that wept blood. The air was thick with the sound of flies and the wet noise of decay. The light led them to the end of the hall, to a room that had once been painted pink, but was now splattered with something much darker. A little girl's room, if you could still call her a little girl. The thing that waited for them in the corner of the room had once been a child, but death and hunger had changed her into something else. Her dress was rotted and stained, hanging in tatters from a frame that was too thin and too tall, with limbs that bent in ways that human limbs shouldn't bend. Her face was a map of decay, with holes where her eyes should have been, and a mouth that opened far too wide, revealing rows of rotted but jagged teeth. Around her, toys lay scattered across the floor. A headless doll that leaked red, building blocks that spelled out obscenities, stuffed animals that had been turned inside out, but were somehow alive.
"This is my bedroom,"
the voice said, and it was coming from the thing's ruined mouth.
"Before they made me into this."
"What happened to you?" Madison asked, trying not to look directly at the creature as it began to move toward them with jerky, puppet-like motions. "I told the truth about what my uncle did when he came to visit, about the games he made me play in the basement." The thing's voice sounded a little more like a child, as its head tilted at an impossible angle, bones cracking audibly. "But nobody believed me. They said I was making stories. They said little girls shouldn't say such wicked things." The temperature in the room plummeted. Their breath came out in visible puffs as frost began to form on the walls. Frost that looked suspiciously like frozen blood. So I stopped talking. I stopped eating. I stopped being. And when I died, something else took my place. Something that could never lie, could never be silenced again. The creature lunged forward without warning, moving faster than anything dead should be able to move. Zoe screamed as rotting fingers wrapped around her throat. "Something that feeds on the lies that killed me." "How long have you been here?" Jaden gasped, trying to pull Zoe away from the creature's grip. "Time doesn't matter when you're dead," But I've been waiting for someone fresh, someone young, someone with so many beautiful lives to devour. The creature's grip tightened on Zoe's throat, and they could hear bones beginning to crack. And now you're here. Now you can help me. Help you do what? Madison screamed, grabbing a rotting toy and hurling it at the creature's head. The toy passed right through it, but the creature released Zoe, who collapsed gasping to the floor. Tell everyone what I know, all the secrets this town has buried, all the lies people tell themselves to sleep at night. But first you have to become like me. Images began to flash around the room. Not just glimpses, but full scenes that played out in horrifying detail. Madison saw her science teacher, Mr. Brennan, not just taking money from the charity jar, but using it to buy drugs from students. She saw the mayor's wife, not just buying pills, but crushing them up and injecting them into her sleeping husband's IV bag as he lay dying in the hospital. She saw her neighbor, Mrs. Cooper, not just burning love letters, but burning them with her female lover's body still tied to the chair where she had tortured her to death. I see everything, the creature whispered, its voice now coming from everywhere again, as dozens of other dead children began to emerge from the walls. Every secret, every shame, every hidden truth, and I remember it all. Stop, Parker said, covering his eyes, but the images burned themselves into his brain anyway. I don't want to see this. But you need to see it. You all need to see what this world really is. What people really are when they think no one is watching. More images. Darker ones. Madison saw things that made her vomit. Parents abusing children in ways that defied description. Teachers and coaches and priests and doctors using their power to inflict unimaginable suffering. Entire communities working together to cover up horrors that have been going on for generations. Why are you showing us this? She cried, bile burning her throat. Because someone has to know, someone has to remember, and someone has to become the truth. The creature, the thing that had once been a little girl, began to change, growing larger, more horrible. Its limbs stretched and multiplied. Its mouth opened wider, revealing not just teeth, but a throat that went down forever. Take my gift, it said, reaching for them with dozens of rotting hands. Become like me, live forever in the truth. Madison felt cold fingers touch her forehead, and suddenly she could see everything. Every lie ever told in the town of Millfield, every secret buried in shallow graves, every horror hidden behind closed doors. It was too much, too real, too horrible. But worse than seeing it was understanding it, understanding that she was supposed to become part of it. The next morning, 4 sets of parents called the police to report their children missing. The search lasted for weeks, but no trace of Madison, Jaden, Zoe, or Parker was ever found, except for their shoes lined up neatly on the front porch of the old Hartwell house. And so, dear listeners, we emerge from another dark corner of Carmen's crypt. But remember, the horrors you've heard tonight are merely echoes of the terrors that await in the shadows of your own mind. If you enjoyed your stay in the crypt, why not invite a friend to join us next week? After all, fear is best when shared. Leave a review if you dare, or share your own tales of terror on my social media. Who knows, your nightmares might just become my next story. Until next time, keep checking under your bed. And remember, in Carmen's crypt, every fear comes alive, and no one is truly safe. Sweet dreams, if you can still sleep at all.